Let's get to the cabinet, shall we? All right, this has been an extraordinary showdown in the cabinet meeting. We're getting some details here. Let's go ahead and put it up there on the screen. Apparently, in this cabinet meeting, which was convened by Donald Trump, over tensions inside of DOGE, Marco Rubio had a complete standoff with Elon Musk. And you'd be surprised, which is not just over DOGE and the State Department, but it was also over USAID and more broadly about cabinet level authority. So let me just read from some of this. Here he was in the cabinet room of the Oval Office, the White House, Secretary of State, seated beside the president, listening to a litany of attacks from the richest man in the world, seated diagonally opposite across the elliptical mahogany table. Elon Musk was letting Rubio have it, accusing him of failing to slash his staff. "You have fired nobody," Mr. Musk told Rubio, then scornfully added that perhaps he was the only person he had fired was a staff member from Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Rubio has been privately furious with Musk for weeks, ever since his team effectively shuttered an entire agency that was under Rubio's control, USAID. But in an extraordinary cabinet meeting in front of President Trump and 20 others, details of which have not been reported, Mr. Rubio got his grievances off his chest. Musk was not being truthful, Rubio said. What about the more than 1,500 State Department officials who took the buyouts? Did they not count as layoff, he asked, sarcastically, whether Musk wanted to rehire them so that he could make a show of firing them again. Then he laid out his detailed plans for reorganizing the State Department. Musk was unimpressed. He told Rubio he was on good on TV, with a clear subtext that he was not good for much else. Throughout all of this, the president sat back in his chair as if he were watching a tennis match. After the argument dragged on for an uncomfortable amount of time, Trump finally intervened to defend Rubio as, quote, doing a great job. So Rubio has a lot to deal with. He's very busy. He's always traveling. So everyone just needs to work together. That was only one of two clashes, apparently, that happened inside that meeting. The second was actually between Sean Duffy and Elon Musk. Sean Duffy is the Secretary of Transportation. Duffy said, the young staff of Mr. Musk's team were trying to lay off air traffic controllers. Quote, what am I supposed to do? Mr. Duffy said. I have multiple plane crashes to deal with now, and your people want me to fire air traffic controllers. Musk told Duffy his assertion was a lie. Duffy insisted it was not, and he had heard from them directly. Musk said, who has been fired? Give me their names, tell me their names. Duffy said, there are no names because I stopped them from being fired. At another point, Musk insisted people were hired under DEI programs or working in control towers. Duffy pushed back, and Musk did not add any details, but said in the longer back and forth that Duffy had his phone number and should call him if they had any issues to raise. The exchange added, with Trump telling Duffy he had to hire people from MIT and that the people and the controllers need to be geniuses. I guess we can agree with that one. Just a little bit of, we're just taking a look at what exactly.
I thought he had no use for these highfalutin, universities like MIT.
No, we want the best of the best. MIT, by the way, has got no affirmative action in place, so shout out to MIT. Let's go to the next one here, just to show you some of the fallout. Elon is no longer following Secretary Duffy on his personal account, so he's a very petty man.
Teenage girl.
The point being that there's been some flare-ups here in the background. Now, how it all works, I don't actually know, because at the same time, if you read the article, Trump did back up, Elon, saying at the end of the day, like, oh, if they're not firing enough people, Elon, you get it done, or Elon will. But he also was trying to telegraph at the same time that the cabinet officials themselves are the ones with the ultimate authority to hire and fire. And this is a Washington tale as old as time. Who has jurisdiction? Who are the people who are actually, in charge of the government? And usually it's the cabinet secretary, but when the White House, and in this case DOGE under Elon, is trying to take control over this, not only causing political problems, but also like extrajudicial problems in terms of like who has the authority to do this and whether Elon's technically in charge of DOGE or not. This was the overall end result. In some sense, this is what Trump loves. He loves the drama and he loves all of that.
He likes having these factions fight. They talk in here about how he was sitting back and watching this like he was watching a tennis match.
There's nothing he loves more than that, but it's funny if it's something stupid like Omarosa versus John Kelly, but it's not funny whenever it's about major government programs like air traffic controllers. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think there's a little bit of an issue right now.
So there's an update this morning. I don't know if you saw this. Marco Rubio Rubio has a new pinned tweet, which says, after a 6-week review, we're officially canceling 83% of the programs at USAID. The 5,200 contracts that are now canceled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve, and in some cases even harmed the core national interests of the U.S. In consultation with Congress, we intend for the remaining 18% of programs we're keeping, approximately 1,000, to be administered more effectively under the State Department. Thank you to DOGE and our hardworking staff who worked very long hours to achieve this overdue and historic reform. And Elon replied, tough but necessary, good working with you. The important parts of USAID should always have been with Department of State. So Rubio there trying to signal to the DOGE fans that no, he's on board. He's a good, DOGE ally, and it seems like they sort of kissed and made up in terms of the Twitter back and forth. But some of the backstory with Rubio, I think, has to come down to as well when PEPFAR funding was cut and there was a backlash. Rubio signed a waiver saying, no, these funds still need to go out, but the funds still did not go out. So it was like he had actually no control over the agency that he was running. And I'm sure that and things that we have no idea about contributed to this tension. But the fact USAID was such a direct target and Elon really took the helm and sidelined Rubio there, that is part of what led to this blow up between them. Now, the other thing that you have to keep in mind with this cabinet meeting and the way it's been sold to the press and the way Trump is positioning things, et cetera, is that part of the legal problems for Elon and DOGE is that, it does have to be the agencies who decide who to hire and fire. So by putting this out to the media and positioning it as like, no, Marco Rubio, Sean Duffy, they really are ultimately in charge, that could also help them with their legal case because the courts have already signaled, like, you can't just DOGE can't just blanket fire people. Office of Personnel Management, which is like government HR, can't just blanket fire people outside of their own agencies. That has to come from the departments themselves. So that's the other piece, is that repositioning this narrative where it's, oh no, the cabinet secretaries are actually in charge, could be an attempt as well to help them with their legal trouble. Yeah,
I actually read that as well. I mean, no one should confuse it to say Marco Rubio is not a conservative who probably doesn't agree with cutting, USAID.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
That's always been the case. The question for them is about authority and about the ability to actually, put these cuts in and see as if it basically, the question is does Sean Duffy himself get to decide who gets cut and what's not? And in general, this is one where, look, I'm not a big expertise worshiper or any of that, but at the very least, if we think about norms, for people who've been Senate confirmed to these positions, who have the authority and the reporting of their underlings to actually go and find out who should get cut or not, then sure, but that's a different story about who gets cut, and especially at a media level, as opposed to just coming in and deciding what gets cut and what's not. And that's really where, again, you can have all the so-called ability like Elon supposedly has to be able to come in and just be like a domain expert, almost immediately, but with the government, it's just fundamentally different than a private company. That was actually the fascinating part of when you were reading in the Times article, is he just kept coming back. He's like, look, my market cap of my companies is hundreds of billions. I've been able to run them this, and this. And I mean, I've just said from day one, it's like, look, it is just not the government. Efficiency, while it should be a goal, is not the ultimate goal. It's not about increasing the profitability of the government. There are a lot of government programs which are super inefficient, but they're very popular and or necessary for a lot of people. Yeah. They could be more efficient, but it would, look, what's more efficient? Social Security or letting people starve? Obviously, letting people starve is more efficient. It's not a sociological, it's not like a benefit to society, though. So we say, okay, we're gonna pay it. That's one of those where the business mindset has just never made a lot of sense. And part of the reason why I don't think business people have ever been particularly good politicians.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And also, I mean, it's Elon's arrogance and his lack of ability to work with people, his total unwillingness to try to smooth things over. I mean, that's part of his character that he's actually proud of. I mean, he tweeted that thing about what the downfall of Western civilization is, empathy. That's, he thinks that. I mean, there's stuff, he makes similar type of comments in that direction in the biography, the Walter Isaacson biography.
Oh, that book sucks. That's the worst book. Sorry,
Walter. But it's still
yeah.
You get a sense of his character, and empathy is something that he looks down on. So the idea of people are going to die in Africa because of HIV because we don't have that funding, he doesn't care. The idea that he's pushing that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. And that elderly people were lifted out of poverty by this program has been incredibly important. He doesn't care. Like the fact that Marco Rubio is pissed off at him, he certainly doesn't care. And the fact that it was also Sean Duffy was one of the other people who was most pissed off at Elon also makes a lot of sense, because Sean Duffy, Department of Transportation, FAA is under him. That is one of the departments that Elon has taken the most interest in. Why? Well, I mean, FAA has been investigating SpaceX because of now we just had another SpaceX rocket that blew up and caused mass diversion of commercial flights, and airports had to be closed, et cetera. So he's been pissed off at them for a while. There's also reporting about the way his SpaceX people have come in and are trying to take contracts away from other countries, other companies, and redirect them to Starlink in particular, which is under SpaceX. So it's not surprising that Sean Duffy would be one of the others that had the most sort of grievance and rubbed up against Musk the most here. But, in terms of how this plays out and whether Elon will actually be reined in or not, color me a little bit skeptical, because as Saagar was saying, after this whole thing, Trump gets asked, like, okay, well, what went down in the Oval Office? And he does make this comment that's like, well, it's up to the agency heads to cut. But if they don't, Elon will do it. Take a listen.
You spoke today with your cabinet members and Elon Musk.
I did.
What did you tell them in regards to Elon Musk and his authorities to carry out actions?
We had a great meeting. We had Elon and we had some of the representatives for the business reps. We also had most of the cabinet members, not all of them. It doesn't really pertain to all of them, but many of them. And I thought it was a really good meeting. It was about cutting, because everybody knows the country's way out of control in terms of the number of people. We have many people that don't work. We have many people probably that aren't even living that are getting checks. And we're finding all of that out, and it's being reported. We're going to save hundreds of billions of dollars. We've already saved a lot. And parts of it are contracts that are expired that we're paying on. Many crazy things that, you can see it happening. It shouldn't happen, but you can see it happening. You see a lot of it being put out. But the other thing I think most important for today, I want the cabinet members to keep good people. Now, I don't want to see a big cut where a lot of good people are cut. I want the cabinet members to keep the good people, and the people that aren't doing a good job, that are unreliable, don't show up to work, et cetera, those people can be cut. So I had a meeting, and I said, I want the cabinet members, go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. And it would be better if they were there for 2 years instead of 2 weeks, because in 2 years they'll know the people better. But I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious, that's very important, and we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
So if they can cut, it's better. But if they don't cut, then Elon will. So still, ultimately, the final decision resting with Elon there. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, it's been the level of subservience from Trump, the amount of the direction of the government that he has just handed over to Elon has been truly extraordinary. And so maybe we'll look back at this as like a turning point, where I think from Trump's language and the fact that he said this thing about, we want to cut with a scalpel, not a hatchet. Like, I do think he realizes some of the political peril here. And I think he's felt blowback from, there are a lot of Republicans who were like, this thing that was important in my district got cut. And by the way, Elon went and gave them his number so that they can petition him directly. They can petition the king directly to have their particular cuts reversed. But, I do think he has a bit of a sense that he's on politically perilous ground. Does that make him change course? I think that's a real open question.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the point, is that we really cannot tell, because for all of that, Elon, yes, he's been put in his place a little bit. He does wear a suit now. Thank you, Elon. Finally showed up in a suit to a cabinet meeting. Even Trump, I guess, could no longer countenance that anymore after he just threw a comment at him. Unlike Zelensky, apparently Elon listens. But, even then, the audacity to lecture the U.S. Secretary of State in the American cabinet room when you're unelected is just unbelievable. It's like, who? And Trump just puts up with it, right? And it's not even like he's a senior member of the White House staff like a Stephen Miller or somebody like that who has been on board the campaign since 2015, symbiotic with Donald Trump, who genuinely has the authority and the political standing to do so. It's like this person didn't really support Trump until like July of 2024.
Right.
And then just ended up, bandwagoning and paying for the campaign to basically leapfrog all of these other people who've been with him for such a long time. Not even Steve Bannon would ever dare to sit there in the U.S. cabinet room and to lecture the United States Secretary of State, right? And he's got 10 times more authority, in my opinion, to be able to do so. So, look, is it a turning point and all that? Maybe. My only political caution is it's still just so early that Trump could reverse course, and he'd probably be fine. A lot of this may be, energizing and all that to the Democratic base. He's still got 17 months till the midterms and all that start to really kick into gear. So that's where I'm the most curious is what direction they decide to go in. But I still think the tax bill is like a looming political detriment to them politically, where that's one where being a normie Republican alone, like even sans Elon, is going to be very politically difficult for the White House. True. That's where I just can't look away. I'm like, this is a blinking red light of political problems that you're just waiting, to pass, and they're frothing at the mouth for it. But I don't think America's going to take it down lightly.
Yeah, I don't think so either. If Democrats were smart, they would talk relentlessly about Medicaid and tax cuts for the rich. I mean, that would be, you would be on just like endlessly solid.
Well, it'd be smarter to just not cut Medicaid. I mean, that's the other thing. Look, Medicaid, we'll see. They say, the budget and all that has quote unquote cuts. Trump says he won't sign a Medicaid or a Medicare cut. If they do work requirements, I still think that's very different. I mean, liberals can, argue about it till they're blue in the face. Work requirements are very popular.
I was looking at the numbers this morning, and let's say that even if you put in work requirements, so they have slated in the Republican budget that passed the House $800 billion in cuts that would likely be from Medicaid. The way that the process works, it's not like specified, but it would almost have to come from either Medicaid or Medicare. And Medicare is even more politically difficult to cut at all. So if you put in work requirements, that's about $100 billion.
Right.
So you still have $700 billion more that you are going to cut.
Yeah.
So you will be cutting into the bone. And I mean, I oppose work requirements. I think everyone should have health care. But even if you do that, for people who aren't disabled, it's a drop in the bucket of how much they ultimately want to cut. But the last thing that I'll say about the Elon situation is Elon has his own agenda, right? And Elon, as much as he may, put on the suit and make nice with Trump and get, oh, Mr. Trump, thank you so much, and you're so amazing, and he may butter him up, but Elon has his own ideological agenda, and Elon believes himself to be Ready Player One, the primary actor, not Trump. It will take more than a little, leaked to the press slap on the wrist to get Elon to stop pushing ahead with whatever the hell he wants to do. It's the way he operates. And in this way, the fact that he is this businessman who, sees violating the law and as like a cost of doing business and just something that he does as part of his daily practice and charging forward no matter what, no matter who would object or what the norms are, what the procedures are, or whatever, it does give him a tremendous advantage in this battle. And we've already seen the way that his DOGE apparatchiks have rolled through all of these departments and gotten access to all these data and, sent out his 5 bullet point email without getting anyone's permission to the whole of government and forced everybody to react to him. Like, that is the way that he operates. And so it's going to take much more from Trump than just saying like, oh, the agency heads are in charge, but ultimately Elon gets to decide who to cut. It's going to take a lot more actual effort and actually checking Elon and perhaps even just removing Elon from the post before he would ever stop pushing in the direction that he is pushing. So that's why I'm skeptical that this will represent a true turning point. But perhaps if Trump realizes like how politically perilous this is, or if Elon pisses him off or offends his ego in some certain kind of way, maybe things change, but I just don't see any sign of that yet.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to see. I certainly am. And if they get what's coming to them, nobody can say you weren't warned. It's even in the White House. What, you think Steve Bannon and all those other people aren't telling them what's coming? But listen, I mean, if that's what they want to do, I guess that's what they want to do.
That was one other thing. He apparently told Steve Bannon to back off the Elon criticisms.
Yeah, of course. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.